Hi everyone, this is Dr. Stefan. Welcome to Interstitial Info. In this episode, I'd like to discuss a little bit about exercise and what types of exercise to do in case you do suffer with pulmonary fibrosis, or you know of someone who suffers with pulmonary fibrosis in your friend group, family members, etc. So this is a question that comes up a lot, and while I'm not your doctor, so please always check the information that I'm saying with your own healthcare team, because every person is different, every situation is different. But overall, I'd like to tell you that generally there are no contraindications for doing moderate physical exercise, no matter what your condition is. And this is something that I think needs to be driven home a lot, because for a long time in medicine, doctors would have advised patients who are ill to take it easy. And while that is good, especially if you've been just coming out of hospital, you've had an acute admission, you feel really, really unwell, that's maybe not the best time to do exercise until you recover. But if you have a chronic condition, in this case pulmonary fibrosis, probably doing a little bit of exercise and keeping moving, just maintaining, is probably essential. Because what tends to happen is that people become deconditioned with time. So as you're doing less and less exercise because you are breathless, you tend to weaken your muscles. Overall, the muscles get weak, they adjust to you doing less and less. And then that makes you even more breathless when you try to do something or when you need to do something, because all of us may need to go to the shops. We may need to clean our house. We may need to cook. We may need to go on a walk with our family, with our friends, to do activities that we enjoy doing. And if we don't really have the ability, the capacity to do that, it can be really, really life-limiting. It can make you very depressed. It can make you very unhappy with your overall direction in life. So, to answer this common question, I would first like to say that you need to do something, or this is my opinion at least, that you should try to do something that you enjoy. So, generally, people tend to do more exercise if they're actually involved in doing something that they actually like. So, for example, if you like walking, that's the easiest form of exercise that you can probably do. Now, you don't have to walk for a long distance. You need to set a baseline level of what you can do, try to determine how much you can do, and then try to just push that boundary a little bit more. Now, you may need to readjust based on the limitations given to you by your condition, which is unfortunate, but you need to think about that a little bit. So for example, if you used to be an athlete, if you used to walk and work for hours at a time, but now you cannot do that, it's just important to take a step back and reassess the baseline that you're at. So for example, if you're only able to walk around the house, maybe start with that. Just keep walking around the house. If you're struggling, if you're really struggling, if you have a very advanced form of pulmonary fibrosis and maybe other conditions that limit your exercise capacity, and you can only get up from your chair, go to the kitchen, get a drink of water, eat your food, and then come back, maybe that's the baseline that you start at, so just do more of that. However, for most people, walking is still possible. So walking around the park, walking around your garden, walking up and down your street, going to the shops, doing that a number of times a day, that can be the first start for doing exercise. Whatever makes you breathless is probably a form of exercise for you. So just really important to just set the scene where you are at. Try to maybe keep track of what you can do. You can have a little bit of a journal. You can use apps on your phone potentially to track how many steps you're doing, things like that. So there are a lot of things that you can start with. Now, walking is easy. Now, say you don't like walking, or potentially you cannot really walk very well because you have other conditions that limit you in that way. Maybe you're unstable on your feet, maybe you need to use a cane to walk, or maybe you suffer from a condition like rheumatoid arthritis, for example, or other forms of arthritis, and your knees are not strong enough, or you may have a lot of pain when you're walking related to your joints or other things. Maybe walking may be too difficult for you. In those situations, sometimes people have tried going swimming or doing some exercise that takes away the body weight. So there are a lot of things that you can do in that regard. And maybe in that situation, you may need to consult with a physiotherapist to just determine what you can do in your situations. But as a simplification, if one body part aches, probably you need to avoid putting a lot of strain on that body part. So let's say your knees are really shot and you have a lot of problems with your knees. maybe not putting a lot of stress on your knees, but that doesn't stop you from maybe getting an elastic band. And actually, I think I have one here. I'll show you. There you go. So this is an elastic band. So you may notice that my background is different because I'm traveling. But actually, because I'm traveling for quite a bit of time and I'm away from my home setting where I have all my equipment and stuff for exercise, I bought an elastic band. And these are very easy because you can still do exercises to, for example, stretch your back a little bit or do any of these sort of activities. You don't have to be doing it in the exact right way. You can do it in many different ways, but actually just having something simple like that, and you can get these in like different strength, it can keep you going. It can help you just sort of keep your muscles strong. Another thing that you can do if you're really struggling to do a lot of things is to just breathing exercises. Just consider breathing exercises. And these are just ideas that I'm coming up with on the top of my head, the things that you can do. And please try to be creative with this. There's lots of things that you can do. Anything that makes you breathless, really. So breathing exercises can help as well. So for example, just deep breathing. Taking deep breaths in and out. Stretching the lungs out. This can help a lot. Also, if you're coming up to the elastic bands, I'm just coming back to this a little bit, because one of the exercises that our specialist nurses have been advising our patients to do is sometimes to try to imagine, if you get an elastic band that's really soft and you can stretch it really easily, is to try to just imagine as you're breathing in, you're stretching the lungs and then you're slowly coming back. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Right? So doing that actually helps you control your breathing, because one thing that happens a lot with pulmonary fibrosis patients is that the lungs become hardened. So when you really start to pant, you tend to panic because you cannot really move the lungs as well as you can, as you could before. So as you're really trying to control your breathing, you can panic, and that makes you hyperventilate, and that makes you breathe heavier, and you get into this cycle where you cannot really control your breathing, and it can be really tough to deal with. So actually knowing how to be aware of your breathing is very important. So meditation, controlling your breathing, being aware of how the air goes in and out, that can actually help you combat those moments of panic when your breathing is really difficult. And I know these things may sound simplistic, too simplistic maybe, but these are really the forms of exercise that you should be very good at. Just activities of daily living. Breathing, stretching your muscles out. You don't have to use an elastic band. I'm just showing this as an example. Just stretching your body, stretching your arms, stretching your chest, twisting a little bit, making sure that you're moving all your little joints to keep them going. That can actually help you a lot to perform all the activities that you need to do. So for example, even the small joints in your fingers, if these don't get stretched out, sometimes they can become a little bit gripped, and you cannot really do fine movements like writing and handling a coin, or unbuttoning your shirt or things like that. So just keeping going with all these things can actually help a lot. And then moving on to just walking around, doing small little chores around the house. And you may need to step back a little bit. You may need to ask for some help, and that's not something that should cause embarrassment. Most family members want to help, especially if you're engaging as well, if you're trying to do as much as you can by yourself. Just asking, for example, a loved one, a family member, a carer, someone who can help you to maybe take you for a walk, and say if you're really struggling at some point, they can hold you to help you with your stability. So you can just take a few extra steps, those few extra steps every day, and that can actually help a lot. So that's, in my opinion, the best form of exercise that you need to be focusing at the beginning. Then obviously, if you're stronger than that, you can always build on that capacity. If you're able to do all the activities of daily living, cooking, cleaning, walking around, doing all the things that you need to do, taking care of your business, basically, then you can move on to doing other things. And if you have an illness, actually, I strongly believe that taking ownership of the fact that you have this condition and now you need to build on that, I think exercise and physical activity should be like your job. So if you cannot any longer do your own job that you used to do, maybe you're retired, maybe you're not as active as you were before, try to take care of your body as if it's your job. And I know this may sound patronizing for some people who cannot really breathe, but I can I strongly believe that most people can get there. It may not be your case, and you may need to consider other things and stepping back from some of these activities, especially if your condition is very advanced. But in most situations, I believe most people can actually build up on, even if you have a low baseline, you can build up on that just a little bit so that you're a little bit stronger every single day. And it's a long process. It's very slow, especially if you have a condition that's consuming your body, if it's putting a lot of strain on your body in many other ways. Building on that can be difficult, but I believe it's possible. And I would strongly recommend, if you're trying to take the next step, you're good with your own physical activities to handle your daily living, maybe going to physiotherapy or consulting with a physiotherapist in the first instance to see your ability, your baseline, establish what you can do on top of that, maybe the next step, and it may be worth investing in physiotherapy. Even if it costs you a bit of money, I think it's really important. In my opinion, it's on the same level as taking your medication and taking your tablets and all these things that you can do. Keeping your body fit and active is really, really important. And before I conclude the video, I also like to maybe mention a few things about oxygen. So sometimes people who have pulmonary fibrosis, especially if it's really advanced, they may need supplementary oxygen. Now, oxygen is usually given in two forms. So depending on how advanced the condition is or other conditions that may be there, you may require, or someone with pulmonary fibrosis may require oxygen on an ongoing basis, so long-term oxygen therapy, or LTOT. You might find it as this, and this is where you may need to use a concentrator to be in a cannula that provides oxygen continuously throughout the day, usually at a low level, but it can be throughout the day. Or, in many instances, patients may not require oxygen at rest, but they may require a little bit of oxygen when they're doing some exertion. So for example, when you're doing exercise, when you're moving around, when you're trying to get things done, when you're moving, you may need a little bit of oxygen then, because that's when the oxygen levels drop. When your body needs to use more oxygen and the lungs aren't able to provide that level. Then that's called ambulatory oxygen. So MBOT, sometimes you may find it as that. You may be prescribed a little cylinder that you can, or a little portable concentrator that you can use only when you're moving around, but not at rest. At rest, you're fine. Your oxygen levels are fine when you're sat on your sofa, on your chair. But if you need ambulatory oxygen, actually using that while you're exercising can help you do more. So if you've been prescribed oxygen on an ambulatory basis, it's important to consider that despite the embarrassment that you may experience in the first few instances when you're trying to go for a walk with the little oxygen cylinder in your backpack or on a little trolley, after you get past this psychological embarrassment, really, you may find that you're able to do more and your body's functioning better, just because the oxygen levels are maintained at the normal level by correcting those dips in oxygen as they come as you exercise more. And that allows you to keep your muscles stronger longer. And it also helps you prevent putting too much strain on your heart. If you need oxygen, it's a form of treatment. It's just like your body needs something and we need to provide it externally. It's just how it is. But it's important to consider that just because you have been prescribed oxygen doesn't mean that you should stop exercising because your oxygen levels are going low. It just means that you may need to be more aware of your levels and what the level of oxygen that you've been prescribed is at. And you can discuss this with the healthcare team that's looking after your case. Ask them, how much oxygen would you need when you're doing something like exercise? How much oxygen you need at rest? And just try to adjust the levels as you need them. And you can just keep going with that. In my mind, having pulmonary fibrosis shouldn't be considered immediately terminal. It shouldn't be considered the end of the world. It's a difficult situation. It's one of the most difficult conditions to deal with in medicine, I believe, because of the impact it has on your breathing, and breathing has a lot of impact on the psychological and mental health and mental well-being. But if you can adjust your life around that and make it a little bit better for you, just to improve things from one day to the next, it doesn't have to be that you need to get back to where you were before, but just slowly keeping in mind that you need to keep going to have more experience in life, to spend more time with your family, with your friends. That can help. So I hope this was helpful in some way. I know I've been maybe jumping a little bit from one topic to the next, but to be honest, it's a very difficult subject. And each person is completely different. Every one of you who's suffering with pulmonary fibrosis may have a different experience. You may be able to do more or less. You may have different conditions that are associated with pulmonary fibrosis. It's important to always treat all the other things that are there, because it's not always only the pulmonary fibrosis that's making you breathless and making you unable to exercise or to keep going with your life. But yeah, I think I'll stop the video right here. If you have further questions, do leave them in the comment section below, and I'll try to make more videos as time goes on. And all the best to you, good health, and stay strong. Take care.